Let's see. Come on. You can do it. Get the circle of death. There we go.
Right.
All right. We're supposed to be live. Hopefully everybody's getting this. And we'll start with prayer. Lord God, we give you thanks for gathering us together tonight around your word. We ask you, Lord, to be present with us as we read your word and try to use it in our lives. This we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
So first thing that I want to talk about is, hey, Mary, we're coming down to the end here on this section. We're going to do my last couple here, and then if we have time next week, we're going to do one of the stories out of the Apocrypha that I like a lot, just for fun. So if you have an Apocrypha, bring it
Oh boy.
next week. So we need to talk about what. Then we're going to be off for 3 weeks. And
Okay.
then,
Okay. So next week Apocrypha.
yeah, next week bring your Apocrypha if you have one.
Okay.
And then we're off. Hey, Val.
Hi, just made it.
Off
So,
for 3 weeks.
We're off the 24th, 31st, and 7th
Okay.
of January.
Well,
And
that
then we
makes
come
sense.
back on the 14th. Okay?
Okay.
And so we need to talk about what we want to what we want to look at.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards, personally, doing just a book of the Bible. We haven't done that in a while, just a straight book of the Bible. And so first of all, I need to know from you, Old Testament or New Testament? What's your pleasure?
Oh, I don't know.
Not
Who
Leviticus.
knows?
What's wrong with Leviticus?
Oh,
Man.
when I only started reading
Dr.
the
Billadu
Bible.
says, what the heck am I supposed to bring next week? Apocrypha.
I don't even know what it is.
Maybe we could just
The-
go
I
through the
don't
whole
have it.
Apocrypha.
Yeah, not in 1 week.
No, but I mean, like-
I tried that 4 or 5 years ago, and it gets dull because it's so much of it's kind of so much of it's just sort of Jewish storytelling. We're going to do Belle and the Dragon, which is one of my favorites. It's a good little story of stuff that was in. She says I can say fancy words too.
I bet you can.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, no. Next week we're going to do the Apocrypha. So if you have an Apocrypha, bring it because we're going to do Belle and the Dragon. Or if you just want to print off, if you want to go online, just print off Belle and the Dragon, Bel and the Dragon.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
But where it is, I don't know.
You're talking to
Maryland
Mark here.
has one.
Of course.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
you said
Maryland
you want
has
the
it.
New or the Old Testament. That's your question.
Mm-hmm.
For the
Maybe we could do either the Beatitudes or we could do Romans. I've been reading Romans every night now, like a couple, and sometimes his writing is very like,
Yeah, he wrote like a German.
yeah, it's not very
Yeah.
easily
He
like,
did.
like I have to reread it a couple times, and I'm like not a stupid person.
It's
but,
like 400 modifiers, and then you turn the page and
Yeah.
find the verb finally.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
know.
So maybe I'd like to hear what like a professional or
Have we
a
done
scholar
Romans?
knows. Just a suggestion. We don't have to do it. I don't care.
I know
You guys
I've
decide.
taught Romans several times, but I don't know that I've taught here in a while. Yeah, we could do Romans. Romans would be
We
fun.
had Romans for under
Christian Education Hour. Pastor Allen.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Did he
I
do
remember that,
Romans?
We did Romans.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember. I remember Bishop probably did it. I don't remember. Bishop did Romans, I think, 2 or 3 times.
You were in Pastor Allen's?
I went to a couple if I can make it, but usually on Wednesdays I'm working, so I can't. But
Yeah.
But I went to there was one where it was Romans. I remember the sheet. There was a sheet.
Yeah.
that he
Oh,
gave.
yeah.
Yeah.
I always put out sheets.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, he does. He's good about that.
Okay. Just a suggestion or something. I mean, something from Paul. Because like I said, I really struggle with sometimes. He sure talks a lot about the circumcision.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's kind of like I'm like really another.
Because it's a big
another-
deal. Because he's writing, Paul's writing to, he's the apostle to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
And the Gentiles are so beaten down by the Jews because they're not circumcised.
Okay.
And the Jews want to make it this big thing about how, oh, look, you're fine, but you're not us.
Okay.
And Paul's, in fact, we're going to talk about that on Wednesday night because I'm doing the Advent epistles on Wednesdays because the epistles never gets much talk of, people don't preach on it very often. People tend to preach on the gospel. And I preach on the Old Testament a lot, but the epistles just aren't exciting very often because they're not colorful. They're not.
What are Advent epistles?
the epistles that are used during the season of Advent. Like, you know, like on Sunday morning you have the Old Testament, the epistle, and the
I
gospel.
understand, but I don't know what they are.
Well, that depends because we just switched lectionaries. So this year they're all in Romans, but you know that's just because that's the way it is in the one-year lectionary.
Okay, then maybe not. Maybe what about one of the smaller books in the Old Testament towards the end?
In the Old Testament,
Yeah. One of
Well,
the
so we just did the minor prophets, and that's what
Okay.
you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just did the minor prophets.
And the longer ones are horrible.
So
yeah, let's not do anything long. I like the short.
we could just do the short books of the Bible. Like Pastor Allen's doing 1st, 2nd Peter and Jude, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we
Jude
could do
is,
like 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John.
Yeah.
That would
Something
be
like that.
very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
But I love the John.
Do you? Why?
Yeah, let me
Because
Yeah,
he
you're
balances
busy
out
today.
the errors of the errors that people make in just Romans and some of the
we'll look at 1st,
People-
2nd, and 3rd
people
John,
just
and
ignore
and,
entire portions.
Sounds good too.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Then
we'll start with that and see where we go.
So then, what's the plan next week? We're doing.
Next week
Bella
we're doing
and the
Bell and the Dragon.
And then the next 2 weeks we're off.
3 weeks.
Then with 3 weeks we're off. I'm taking 3 weeks. Yeah.
Christmas Eve, New Year's.
One of them's Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and I know you people are going to be such sissies that you won't show up for Bible study. So
I actually wouldn't show up on Christmas Eve, but New Year's Eve I would.
yeah,
Christmas Eve I won't. No.
Yeah, Christmas Eve I would. New Year's Eve. Why can't we do
Better
New Year's
care.
Eve? What else is better to do
You
than?
don't you do the
Service?
service?
yeah. I have a service. We have service at 7:00 on New Year's Eve.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Okay.
Yep.
Well, then that's what I'm.
Yep. Yep, we have a service, and I have to do it this year. Oftentimes I take off, but it's Pastor Allen's 50th wedding anniversary this year.
Oh.
So-
But what kind of excuse is
I know
that?
that's what I said too, but
Come on,
but
that's
Pam
no big deal.
but Pam had another opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, so they're doing. I don't remember what they're doing, but they're doing something for their 50th the week after Christmas. 'Cause he told me 6 months ago, no, he can't sub during Christmas. So I have to do it all by myself, like a real pastor.
So you're going to be
I have
around
to be
during
I have to be a
Christmas.
big boy this year.
So you're not taking off during Christmas.
I can't. I mean, I'll probably, days. We're going to close the office the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's, because there's no one around, and Margaret doesn't need to be here for no reason. But I'll be in and out. Yeah.
Did you guys go into the city yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great day for it.
That
we
was
went-
very
Oh,
nice.
it was perfect.
Did you go to
Yeah.
the Chris Kindle Market?
We went to the Chris Kindle
I
Market.
saw them
and
leaving, and I thought,
What was
they're walking
that
the train,
restaurant
they're
you
going
were
to
at?
Chris Kindle.
What restaurant were you at?
We went to Miller's Pub. It's
I don't know.
my
I
favorite
love
restaurant in the
Miller's
city.
Pub.
Is that off of Lake Street?
It's
That's
no, it's on
Wabash.
Wabash,
Oh,
Wabash
okay.
and Adams.
Yes. What,
Yeah.
did you get like the prime rib or something?
I got
Oh,
a
okay.
prime rib sandwich.
Okay.
And then I had
Oh, the
not one,
ribs are good.
but 2 Tom and Jerry's.
What's the Tom and Jerry?
That's their signature drink that they make only at Christmas.
Okay, what's in it?
And it's frost egg whites on top, and it's got like all the eggnog spices,
Ooh.
and then it's got brandy, bourbon, and rum.
Whoa.
It's phenomenal.
Sounds delicious.
And it
you
makes-
made it home okay?
Well, yeah, I was walking. We took the train.
Right, yeah.
Well, then I know.
So then we walked up to Millennium Park and we saw the tree, which is very disappointing this year. The tree
Really?
is
I liked it better in
ugly.
Daily Classic.
Well, and they have it stuck in like a big weeds patch. It looks like the tree's grown in a weed patch. They did terrible. And then they don't have any ornaments on it. All they have is a big net of lights. And it's a Colorado blue spruce, and so it doesn't hold up well to the net, and so it's all kind of mushed down. And it's terrible. Then we showed Lauren the bean because she'd never been to the bean before. And at first she thought it was stupid. Then she got underneath it and said, "Oh," like everybody does. Everybody looks at
It
it
is
first.
kind of stupid, though.
But it's kind of cool when you actually get up and take
It's just
pictures in
sometimes
it.
I wonder about the Chicago the money, what they spend.
The
their money
art.
on.
The
Yeah,
art.
it's
Yeah.
That's what they
some
call
of their
it.
sculptures down there. It's, come on.
Yeah. And then we walked back. We took the train. Then we stopped off at Lalacia Park and walked through that. So.
Oh, it's beautiful this year.
First time we've ever gone to Lalacia Park when it wasn't like 40 degrees below zero in blizzard conditions.
It was a good day to be out.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Perfect day, yes.
Perfect day. We walked 7.5 miles.
Wow.
Really?
Ew. Wow.
You worked
Yeah.
off your Tom and Jerry's.
Well, I don't know about that.
And the prime rib sandwich.
I think it took about 7 days and 7.5 miles to work
Aren't you
those.
tired though? Like after you eat and like have a couple drinks, don't you like? I mean, the fact that then you did all that walking.
Yeah,
Was it hard? Because for me, after I eat,
Yeah.
it's like no, I'm not
Yeah.
doing anything.
yeah. We considered an Uber, and then we felt like we'd be sissies, so we walked. We walked. All right, let's get on here with that. Let's look at Exodus 1. We're going to talk about Shiphrah and Puah today. Bet you never talked about them in Sunday school.
No.
Oh,
Shiphrah and
Right.
Puah, Exodus 1. Going to read 1 through 7 to start with. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. All the descendants of Jacob were 70 persons. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. Okay, so what was the good thing that happened to God's chosen people here?
They grew exceedingly strong.
Well, before that, how had they gotten to Egypt?
Well,
It didn't tell you here, but before. How did they get to Egypt?
I thought they left Egypt.
No, they eventually did, but how did they get from
Oh, this
Israel
is the
to Egypt?
beginning of Exodus.
Well, yeah, so like in Genesis, you find out. Yeah.
Because of the famine, is that?
Right, right.
Wow.
So the good news here is we find out, hey, they survived everything. They got to Egypt. Everything's great. The people of God are safe and secure. There's only 70 of them, but they made
That's a real important number too.
Mm-hmm.
70. The 70.
Right.
It's the 70 elders of Israel, the Sanhedrin that put Christ to death.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh yeah, and they want to rule the world today. By the way.
And then the
That's
70 is
with
also
the
7
extra
times 10.
redemption.
Okay.
So you've got 7, which is a heavenly complete, and 10, which is an earthly complete. So 7. Whether there were actually literally 70 people, or maybe it was 73 or 64 or whatever, doesn't matter. 70 is the number for all of God's people. That's the point of that. So the good news is they got there. They've done well, and then they multiplied. Okay, they were fruitful and they multiplied, and they went from 70 to over 1 million 400 years later. So this is like 400 years later since they got there, and it's they're well over 1 million. There's no absolute way to number them, but historians and biblical scholars all say it was well over 1 million people. So what does that tell us when we are going through difficult things?
They'll get better.
Well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I mean, we can't guarantee that. But what will happen?
The church will persevere. Maybe.
God will be with you. Yeah. I mean, you got to be careful about the idea of things will get better.
Okay.
Because so many people, it's sort of like I always say, Hallmark doesn't have a sorry you're dying card. Because what do you get somebody who's got a terminal illness? It's hard to find a card that doesn't say, I hope you get well soon. When you've got stage 4 pancreatic cancer, you're not going to live. So what kind of card do you get? We give you a thanking of you card. But I honestly think there should be some kind of card that says, I'm really sorry to hear that you're dying, but I'm really happy that you have faith and you'll be in paradise. Because that's what we need to say to people. Is we need to stop, dancing around the issue of death, and recognize, people die, and unless there's divine intervention here, this person with stage 4 pancreatic cancer is going to die, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. As my training as a hospital chaplain, one of the things that gets beaten into your head is use the word died. Do not say we lost Mr. So-and-so. Because lost in the hospital means lost.
Okay.
And charge nurses start panicking as soon as they hear the word we lost. No. And it confuses children too. I've taken children, I've talked to children whose parents are dying and talked to them about that. And sometimes they are absolutely shocked. That's my front door opening and closing with the dogs. But I have to have it on so I can hear people chiming in. They'll tell children, well, grandma's going to go to sleep. Well, then, I knew a child one time that was terrified of going to bed because he thought that, well, grandma went to sleep and see what happened. Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah.
And people will say, they'll use euphemisms. With children need to hear the word died. Grandma died, or grandma's going to die. probably going to die. I mean, we never know, right? There could always be divine intervention, but Grandma's probably going to die, and so we need to say goodbye to her because we're going to miss her for a while she's in heaven and we're still here. Yeah, but eventually we're going to see her again. So you don't have to. I remember I was just telling somebody this story today. When my dad died, Noah was a baby, but Neil was 5 or so, and so we all went up to the nursing home to see him, and I asked Neil. I said, "Do you want to see Grandpa? Grandpa's dead. Do you want to see him?" And we were going to do direct cremation, so this was the only opportunity to see him. And Neil said, "Yes."
Oh.
Okay, I said, "Okay." So I went up to the bed and I pulled the sheet down, let him see Dad's face. And Neil looks at him for a minute and goes, "He's gone." And I said, "Yes, he is." And Neil says, "Can I have his watch?" Yes, you can. I took his watch off his wrist and gave it to Neil. Yeah, that was hilarious. But,
Oh, sorry. I don't want to
Go ahead.
but wait until you're done.
yeah, go ahead.
So there's something that's been bothering me. Okay, so the Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe that heaven is here, like on earth,
Heaven
and
on
that, and that you see all the people that you are in your life when you all die, you're all going to be together.
As long as you're Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, but so I always thought with us, we did not believe that we were going to see all each other again. But then the other day you told me that we are.
We just don't know.
Okay, so so our heaven is not on earth.
No.
Yes and no.
See, that's what. See, I was getting the
See,
I thought,
because in the beginning, we're taken away to heaven, wherever that is. Yeah, some people think it's a place. Some people think it's a dimension. Some people think, there's all kinds of ideas. What is heaven actually? We don't know, and it's probably nothing we understand because it's God, and so who knows what He has? But we're taken away. But then God recreates heaven and earth. Revelation tells us a new heaven and a new earth is created for us as resurrected people.
But Jesus has to come again for that to happen. Jesus has
Right.
To,
So between the time that Jesus returns and that we die.
Jesus is going to return to earth.
Yeah.
He will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I talked about in the sermon Sunday.
I was there.
Yeah.
I listened to it.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
that part.
Talking about
Reread it.
when Jesus and the whole host of heaven come down and how people will be terrified if they didn't have faith.
Oh yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And but he's not talking to us in that. He's telling us, when you see all this happening, lift up your heads, be excited, because you know your redemption is drawing near. When you see, crazy people doing crazy things, and you see hurricanes, and you see volcanoes, and all that, it's not, oh, woe is me, we're all gonna. This is what Jesus said would happen when we're getting near. So what does near mean? I don't know. It's God, What near to Him and long to Him and short to Him means something different than it does to us. But I can be excited because every time I see something happen, every time I see, lying rulers or despots or wars or things like that, I know these are signs that this world's ending and the new one's coming.
So even if we died before, the actual ending of this world, once Jesus brings the ending of this world, comes to earth for the second time and brings the ending, if we're and wherever we're at, we don't know where we're at, but we're with God.
All right.
Then we're gonna be so after He comes, there's gonna be a new earth created for us,
A new heaven,
and then at that point, we're gonna see everyone like I'll see you.
Yes, you will have your physical body.
I
Yes,
will.
it will be resurrected.
Really?
Your physical body, the same body you have
What if
now.
you don't want it?
Well, it'll be perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, I
I've never
don't.
done that.
If I have to have what I have now, with my achy knees and my receding hairline and my crooked teeth, no, never mind. No, the bad eyes, no, thanks. But it'll be perfect. And what does a resurrected body look like? We're not sure. The only resurrected bodies, the only resurrected body into perfection. I mean, we've seen people resurrected who continue life on earth, like Lazarus, right? Mm-hmm. But the only one who is resurrected like we will be is Jesus. Okay, and we don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's different enough to where Mary didn't recognize him. Mary Magdalene thought he was the gardener
Oh, wow.
when he rose from the dead. So it's different enough till she didn't recognize him until he spoke to her. He looked at her and said, "Mary," and then she says, "Rabboni," teacher. So it wasn't. It's not exact.
And how can you eat? And you have no blood. I don't get that.
You have no what?
Yeah,
Blood.
what if our blood's
Why
been
do you
drained? What if
why
you've
do you
been
think you
embalmed?
won't have any blood?
Because you've been drained because you were embalmed.
Well, you're also. I mean, what about people who are cremated?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
that's
scattered
what I
ashes.
want, so I guess I'm screwed.
And
Yeah.
scattered ashes.
No body for you.
Yeah, no,
You'll
like
just
I
be
said,
you'll just be an ethereal soul floating around. We'll say,
I'll
oh
take
yeah,
it.
that's Valerie.
That's actually not too bad.
Yeah. No, you get a new body. God recreates your body.
Okay, so
There's no way to fix sin, except to recreate the whole thing.
It's Revelation 21:1. New
Yeah.
heaven, new earth.
Okay,
Yeah, Revelation says there's going to be a new heaven, a new
I
earth.
really do.
Like 1,000 times.
Okay, like 1,000 times. Got it.
So yeah, so what does a resurrected body look like? It's perfect. It's good. It's my anticipation is that because Adam and Eve were the only models we have, right, of perfect human beings. Before the fall of the sin, Adam and Eve were perfect. They ate. I'm very excited about that. That we'll be able to eat whatever we want to eat. We won't gain weight. Our bodies will work perfectly. Some people think we'll go to the bathroom. Some people don't. There are actually theological arguments about that as to whether or not you'll go to the bathroom in a resurrected body. Yeah, articles. You can read articles about it on both sides. My favorite, Dave Peterson is the pastor at Redeemer Lutheran in Fort Wayne, who preached a sermon. I happened to be at Redeemer for the board of directors, and it was kind of a genius idea. Will we recognize our loved ones? Well, that's a good question, Jamie. Will we recognize our loved ones? I don't know who will recognize or we won't recognize before the day of the resurrection. After the day of the resurrection, yeah, you'll be able to spot everybody because we'll look like who we are. Like Jesus looked somehow different, but still enough to where people once he spoke, oh wow, that's Jesus. So anyway, Dave Peterson said that his theory is in a perfect body you don't have to eliminate any waste because your body uses everything you eat perfectly, and so it's a perfect system that never needs to eliminate waste, which is an interesting idea. And remember in Genesis when after they fell into sin. And God's in the garden, and Adam and Eve are hiding in the bushes, and they said we are hiding because we were naked. Dave theorizes that Adam was going to the bathroom for the first time.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting? It's an interesting
very
thought.
interesting.
It's not provable, but it's an interesting. There's a lot of interesting thoughts. What if that? Can you imagine how shocking that would be? If you had never gone to the bathroom, and all of a sudden you felt this pain in your stomach, and you're like, "What is this?" And you double over in pain, and all this starts coming out of you. I mean, imagine how terrified you'd be. I mean,
not to mention number 2.
yeah.
I'd be
I mean,
running.
it's a really interesting idea. Like I said, it's not provable, and he caught a lot of heat from the more conservative people because it's kind of, I mean, and he and I are on the same page on this. We like to think through fun ideas of the scriptures that aren't not necessarily everything has to be provable as long as you're upfront about it and saying, look, I don't know if this is true, but what if this were true? And if this were true, it would explain some things. Like, why is Adam hiding in the bushes? Because he's embarrassed.
Because they're embarrassed because they're naked, but you've been with that same person the whole time. And,
and God created you.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, so it's like being a child in front of your parents naked.
Right.
But
if you were in the bushes going to the bathroom,
you would be embarrassed.
And you're like, what is this coming out of my body? And now the Lord's standing out there, and I'm a mess. And I don't know what to do about this. You can. It's a funny thing to think about. Anyway, so we have to be careful. We have to be careful about saying everything's going to be all right because the reality is you're going to die. Okay, but God walks with you. Yeah, we don't pray for God to restore everybody to health, whether he likes it or not. We pray if it's your will. We would love for you to restore this person to health and to your service. If it's not your will, that's fine too, because then they go to the paradise. What's that like? We don't know. All we know is it's good. Will we recognize each other before the resurrection? I don't know. I don't think so, because there won't be anything to recognize. There's no body. will we somehow see spirits or souls? Who knows? Maybe, but it'll be good. That's all you have to worry about, is it'll be good. God has it all taken care of. And that's the great story here, is that it was not, could be seen as horrible. That they came to Egypt to get grain and ended up being slaves, right? I mean, that could be seen as a horrible thing. And yet God blessed them while they were there. Now, even more so, when he's ready for them to leave, what does he do? He makes them go and ask the Egyptians for gold and silver. Okay? You ever ask yourself, where did they get the gold for the golden calf? Because God made the Egyptian give them the gold. Okay, and so they're slaves for 400 years, which for God is, blink of an eye, no big deal. 400 years, yeah. But he takes care of them. They get all the gold and silver they need for their trip. They were not supposed to make a golden calf out of it, but here we are. And, but he makes the Egyptians, their captors, pay them to leave. Okay, and then they leave. They get out, and it's just phenomenal the way from our perspective, we get to sit where we are in history and look at this and say, what were they worried about? But then think about our own lives. We get all flustered and excited over little things. That if God can handle bringing 1 million people out of slavery in a foreign land with no weapons, by the way, against a country that has chariots and spears and arrows, if God can take care of that, I'm pretty sure he can take care of every little thing in my life. Because there's really nothing in my life that's anywhere, doesn't even approach that.
Well, what do we have to do to get him to take care of everything in our life? Let
Nothing.
him?
Well, we have to have
Nothing.
faith. We have to have faith.
We don't have to do anything. You already have faith. There's no have to. You have faith. You can choose not to use it if you'd like, but you have faith.
What about the whole thing about thinking? Okay, so the Sermon on the Mount book I was reading on the trade day,
Mm-hmm.
and
I haven't read it yet. I'm still reading Confronting the Presidents. So.
okay. Well, it talks
on my
about
list.
harmonious thinking, good thinking brings about you can't. It's against the law of the universe to think one way and produce something else. You're going to produce It's the whole idea of blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. That by thinking a particular way, you're going to get control over your earth, which is a manifestation. Basically, your earth is a manifestation of your inward thinking or your inward being. That's what Jesus means by that beatitude. That's what this guy is saying, who wrote this book.
Say that again.
Okay. Your thinking, your outward world, is nothing but a manifestation of your inward being. As within is without. That's like a law of the universe.
So you project your inward thinking onto the world around you. Is that what you're saying?
Well, meaning if you're thinking good thoughts and harmonious thoughts, and Paul was saying in Romans, the first thing, hold fast to good, live harmoniously. It's I'm reading a lot in this book who's not when I'm thinking about it, he's well, what he's saying is matching what the apostles say, but that if you live hard. So I'm saying, what can you do to have everything turn out okay? You're saying nothing.
Nothing.
Just God will do it, but living harmoniously, being good, holding fast to good.
Yeah, that's really nebulous and intangible.
Okay.
I want something tangible. Okay, when you tell me, when I say, what does God want from me, so that I'm connected to Him and all this good stuff, I want something tangible, and He gives me something tangible. He gives me the 10 Commandments.
Okay.
To the extent that I keep the 10 Commandments, my life will be good.
Okay.
To the extent that I don't keep the 10 Commandments, my life will be crap. And either way, I'm saved. It has nothing to do with my salvation.
Yeah, it's just living a better life.
How do you want to live?
Yeah.
And the Beatitudes, like I said, I haven't read the book yet because it's still hadn't made it to the top of my pile yet.
Yeah.
I've got it, but I just haven't gotten to it. and sometimes my pile moves very slowly. I'm not a fast reader, and that's something that was always hard for me in school, is because I have to go at a certain pace in order to comprehend. If I can read fast, but then they ask me half an hour later what it was, I don't know. But to really think about it, I have to go slow, and so sometimes that really slows me down. Always has, but it is what it is. We all have our crosses to bear. But what it sounds like he's saying is that in the Beatitudes, Jesus is giving us the roadmap for happiness.
Yes, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
But that's not what the Beatitudes are about.
Okay, but he's saying he's saying blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The people who are open-minded and willing to live according to God will have a better outward life. That's what he's saying. You'll inherit your earth. You'll have control over your outward.
Blessed those who
Not
cry.
control. Control is a bad word.
I don't
You know
think
what
that's
I'm saying.
what I don't think that's what the
I don't
Beatitudes
think
are
that's
saying.
what Jesus
No.
means. You
No.
gotta read the book.
Yeah, I will. But the
A lot of bad books out
Beatitudes,
there.
the Beatitudes are Jesus is speaking to people who are blessed. You already have this. You are already filled with the Word of God. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the
kingdom of
meek.
heaven is there. No,
Yeah. And blessed. Remember that blessed is a hard word. The Greek word there, we say blessed, but it's not like blessed like, oh, you're so blessed, you have everything. It's like contentment, happiness, joy, all those kinds of things rolled into one is what he's saying here. And so I don't want to get off on the Beatitudes, but
yeah, I'm sorry.
but it's it's not about the Beatitudes are not about controlling your world around you or controlling your life. That's the Ten Commandments.
Okay.
The Beatitudes are the reality of who you are as God's child.
Okay.
This is who God has made you.
Well, I look forward to when you start reading it, because then we can talk about it and you can tell me really, because I think he breaks it down really well. Like, it's all about different, like meek, open-mindedness, willingness, righteous, good thinking, good actions. Like, he breaks down the first word in each Beatitude and what it means to you living your life, and then what you will get out of it. You'll be fulfilled. That's hunger and thirst after righteousness. And I like it, but I'm curious to see if you're going to tell me it's all wrong.
It might be a nifty idea, but I'm not sure that's really what Jesus is saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it might be true. It is true that if you live a righteous life, you will be fulfilled. That is true. If you keep the seventh commandment, you'll be fulfilled. Okay, thou shalt not steal. Don't steal from your neighbor. Don't steal from your government. Don't steal from God. Give what you're supposed to give to everybody. And if you don't have it, then you're not supposed to have it. So be content with what you have. I'm not supposed to have a 7-bedroom mansion in wherever, Glen Ellen or whatever. Yeah, I'm supposed to have a 4-bedroom house in Lombard, and so I'm content. Even when I am tempted to say, "Oh man, I wish I had this," or "I wish I had that," I remind myself, if God wanted me to have that, I would have that. I don't have that, so I can assume that God doesn't want me to have that. Okay, whatever that is, doesn't matter. And of course, I know that's easier said than done, and we all fall into being envious of other people or being wanting other things that we don't have or whatever. But and then sometimes from the other side, we also sometimes excuse our own slothfulness by saying, well, if God wanted me to have it, I'd have it. Well, yeah, God also said go to work. I mean, he did. Paul said, if he does not work, neither shall he eat. Paul doesn't have a problem with saying, Paul says everything pretty black and white as far as, he doesn't pull punches. And so he doesn't put up with people who sit around and say, oh, well, the Lord hasn't blessed me with this or that and the other thing. Well, get off your butt, and go to work. And then see what the Lord does. Also, people who don't give to the Lord in their time and their money. Don't be surprised if you don't get, because he doesn't bless that. He says, give me a faithful offering of your time, your talent, and your tithe. And if you're not giving a faithful offering, then don't sit around whining about not having stuff. You know, that's up to you. You know, God tells you what the formula is. You can either use it or not, you know. I mean, GM tells me that I'm supposed to put regular gas in my car. I can go put diesel in it if I want to. They're not going to arrest me, you know, but they're going to say, yeah, well, your car broke down because you put diesel in it. Well, I want to run. I want, it's my right. I want to have diesel in my car. Good for you. It's not going to run, but good for you. And that's how God is with us with the Ten Commandments. Is that, well, God, I don't want to do this. You know, I don't want to honor Governor Pritzker, or I don't want to honor this police officer, or I don't want to honor, you know, well, too bad. Then you're going to have consequences. You know, this is the way it works. So that if you want to be happy, follow the Ten Commandments. That's where you're going to be. You're going to find blessedness. And to the extent that you follow the Ten Commandments, is the extent you're going to have joy and happiness in your life. It works every time. And there's not one thing in your life, one, I'll say, moral decision. Okay, because obviously the Ten Commandments doesn't speak to the color of your drapes or how high your grass should be or things like that, you know. But one serious moral decision, there's not one thing the Ten Commandments doesn't answer. You cannot think of a moral decision that the Ten Commandments doesn't answer. You may not like the answer. That's always possible, but it's there. Okay, and sometimes you have to go to other parts of the Bible to find out, well, what does this mean? You know, that was Luther's famous question: what does this mean? So
Scripture interprets Scripture.
Right.
There you go.
There you go. You're a Lutheran. That's a Lutheran phrase. Only Lutherans say that, just about. Yeah, that's the thing, is that, you know, like, thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, I mean, I don't know. I know what adultery might mean to you. I might know what it might mean to me. But what does God mean? Well, you read the whole Bible to find that out. What is adultery? And you find out, oh, this encompasses way more than just simple, you know, sleeping with the person down the street who happens to be married. You know, this is not, adultery has all kinds of ramifications for any kind of sexual sin, which is why we have to be so careful about identifying and picking on one particular sin. Okay? Because it's easy to do when it doesn't affect you. You know, and then we can get all caught up. I mean, it's, you know, we have to be realistic about our world and what we're dealing with, because we deal with different things at different times. So in Luther's day, transsexualism was not an issue. You know, no one knew how to do that. I get there were men who dressed as women. Obviously, there have always been men who dressed as women, but nobody ever said, "I want to become another sex," because that was impossible. There was no possibility for that. So Luther didn't address that. You know, but you look at, so you now you look at have to look at the whole Bible and say, well, what does the Bible doesn't use the word transsexual? What does this mean? Well, then you do all the work and you say, oh, well, the Bible talks about God creating you specifically as you are. He talks about knitting you together in your mother's womb. You know, and so whatever I am, whatever good that I am, God put there. Whatever bad is what sin has corrupted. The good is still there. You know, the good that God created is still there, but sin has corrupted some of that. It's like you know, pouring I don't know, oil into a big tub of water. You know, and you can still kind of see where the oil is, but you can't really. It's really pretty hard to get the oil out without taking any water, and you know, it's sort of like that. And so the corruption, we can see the corruption, but sometimes we can't do much about it. You know, we just have to live with it. And that's what simul justus peccator means. Simultaneously saint and sinner was one of Luther's famous phrases, because we live our whole lives both as saint and sinner. We have the saintly side of us, we have the sin side of us. And those two sides are in constant conflict our whole lives.
There's a saying, everyone has two lions inside of them. Which one wins, or which one lives? The one you feed. So
Oh, yeah.
think about it. So it's
Right.
like one, like we're saying, one good, one bad. You go to church, you go to Bible study, you read your Bible.
You feed the
everything
right
say,
lion.
You're feeding the right lion. You go to a bar, you get drunk, you know, have sex with another neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's like, you know, I've never done that, but I'm saying, like, you know, then you're feeding this other lion, and then it's just going to keep growing, and
Satan wins.
Satan wins,
Right.
and you're going to be overcome by evil.
And not only that, But as you feed the wrong lion, you're starving the good lion.
Okay.
Because that frequently what happens is when people go off the rails, they not only start living a life that's unacceptable to God, but they also then they feel indicted by being here, and so they quit coming here. So almost always when somebody suddenly vanishes, when they've been regular in church and all of a sudden they vanish, almost always it's because there's some kind of sin at work. Now, I have been very unsuccessful at discovering that sin. You know, I will go to people who vanish and I'll talk to them and, oh yeah, everything's fine. You know, no, I've just been busy, you know, just having, you know, and I'll ask, well, you used to be really active, you know, in church, and I haven't seen you in months. And oh, you know, we traveled and we did this and blah blah blah. I'll never hear it until months and months and months later. It'll come out, and I'll find out that there was some kind of serious sin going on, or some kind of serious. Either they were committing some sin, or some kind of serious sin is committed against them, or something like that. And they, yeah, it's like I tell people all the time. Look, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I understand that. But for heaven's sakes, go somewhere where you can be fed. Find your tea.
Yeah.
You know? You can't ask the pastor to leave every time you don't like him. So, but there's lots of pastors out there. You know, or this congregation isn't everybody's cup of tea. Some people say, well, I want something different. You know? Great. Go out there and find what you need. You know? But if I got mad at the guy up at the BP station, I wouldn't quit driving. You know, I just go buy my gas somewhere else. You know, what's this? Well, and here's the thing: is because people are lazy, and that gives them an excuse not to come to church and not to come to Bible study and not to read the Bible. Gives them an excuse, and they don't understand, like little children, they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. Because the more they stay away, guess what happens? The easier it gets. And pretty soon, I've known people who have lost their faith who have said, yeah, you know, thanks for stopping by. It was really important to me at one time. And, you know, it just doesn't, I don't really remember why it was even all that important. It just seemed like it at the time, but it doesn't anymore. I don't really need it anymore. And that's what I know. Faith is dead. And there's nothing I can do. You know, there's nothing I can do. The Holy Spirit will have to recreate faith if he so wills, and if he doesn't, then that person's going to hell. You know, because I can't do any more of that. I've never understood the person who comes, you know, once every 5 years, and they faithfully come and they faithfully, you know, they talk about this being their church, and I see them once every 5 years, and there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's clearly something that draws them. You know, I assume that it's faith, that there's like a little spark of faith that draws them here every so often. But your faith is never going to, like you say, you're not going to be able to feed that lion. I tell parents a lot this with teenagers because they get so worried about their teenagers you know, being just enmeshed and absorbed in this world, of the secular world. And I always tell them, I say, you can't stop it. There's nothing you can do. You know, you can put the boy in a bubble, you know, there's nothing you can do. But what you can do is ensure that they're feeding their faith as much as they're getting the other side. So yes, it's okay to make them come to church. I have no problem with making them come to church, making them come to youth group, making them come to Bible study. I have no problem at all. I made my boys come all the time when they didn't want to. People think sometimes that they're pastor kids, so they must jump up on Sunday morning, you know, bright and sparkly, and say, "Come on, let's go to church." No, you know, we made them. Of course we did, and we made all of our kids come to church, and every one of them are faithful Christians. Some are a little less faithful than the others, but you know, they're at different levels, but they're all faithful Christians because we didn't put up with it. You have to come to church.
My mom used to bribe us with Taco Bell. We weren't a fast food family at all.
My
Like, we were
favorite.
never allowed. But if you came to church with mom on Sunday, you got to go and get 2 tacos.
All
at
right.
Taco Bell.
Oh,
So I always went.
yeah. Smart woman.
Taco Bell.
Smart,
One of the
that's my
moms,
favorite.
one of the
too.
moms here does Stan's
That
Donuts.
and China.
Okay, yeah.
What?
And the brother and sister, the brother doesn't come as much as the sister does. And the sister told me one Sunday, she looked at me and she goes, I got donuts. And he didn't. Can you imagine? And I'm just thinking, when I was a kid, if my sister walked in with a bag of donuts and I didn't get it, it would have killed me. I would have been in church 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Of course, I was a fat kid, so you know.
Were you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I might not be here in the holidays because I was asked by a friend to come up to South Dakota. I said, pray about it. If everything works out, I'll drive up there with the car, not the truck.
Do you want to go to South Dakota?
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
Doesn't everyone want to go to South Dakota in December?
No, that's what I'm asking. Like, what?
Oh, it's nice.
It must
I
be
mean,
a woman.
No, well, I mean, no, it's a family.
Oh, a family
Okay.
person. Okay, well, yeah, that
No,
explains
not
it.
my family.
Oh.
I'm just saying that these are friends. And, you know,
All right.
Okay.
Moving on. Exodus 1. Now we're going to do 8 through 14. I've managed to eat up half the class here and haven't gotten through even the first lesson
Well, we
yet.
can come back tomorrow. No, okay.
Yeah,
We got
right.
church tomorrow.
Church, yeah. And then I've got the kids for Big House. So. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land. Therefore they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. They built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. So they ruthlessly made the people of Israel work as slaves and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in all kinds of work in the field. In all their work, they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. Okay, so what did the Egyptians do in the face of God's blessings upon their slaves? They oppressed them, right? If you're being oppressed by unfaithful people, if you are being oppressed by unfaithful people, you're doing something right. Okay? That's a good sign that you're living your life for God, because unfaithful people hate that, and they will oppress you. All you have to do is watch The View.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm sorry. I mean, I won't make any apologies for that. Those are some of the most oppressive, unfaithful women I've ever heard.
Yep.
They lie, they cheat, they divide, they're divisive.
They're hypocrites.
Well, that may be too. Satan hates seeing Christians succeed. He hates it, and he will do whatever he can to oppress Christians. And the irony of it is the more we're oppressed, the greater our power is. That's what St. Paul means when he said, "In my weakness is God's strength." You know, God shows his strength through my weaknesses. You oppress me, and part of the problem of the church in this country is because it hasn't ever been oppressed until the last few years. It's just been in the last few years that we have really experienced oppression. When we had a political situation that did not like the church. Okay? Now, we had a Supreme Court that did like the church, but what we had the executive branch and much of Congress was not in favor of the church, and there was this rolling election of Muslims and other people, you know, either atheist people or Muslim people who were getting into higher offices, and Jewish people in high offices. The governor of Illinois, the governor of Pennsylvania, both Jewish. And really we began to see what oppression could be like. And it's really interesting. I don't know if you've paid attention to it or not, but it's like the steam valve has been released. Since the election, the church is suddenly, I'm seeing all kinds of comments about Christianity, I'm seeing all kinds of, it's just the church is rising. There's almost a feeling around of I see Christmas lights. I mean, there's like 15 times more Christmas lights in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I noticed that
Other
today
than
coming here.
my house, which Daniel calls the Jewish house, because I refuse to go out and put lights up because I hate it. But I used to do it when the kids were little, and I just can't deal with it. But she'll
But the
decorate.
lights are the most beautiful I've seen in this
I know.
town for like 30 years.
I think a lot of it
Yeah.
is because we had years of oppression, and suddenly it's off, and we're just exploding with joy. The attendance at church has been great. The attendance midweek last week was really good. So it's I think people are just exploding with joy because that's what happens. Was the suffering real? Yes. You really do. I mean, these people suffered. This wasn't a joke. They suffered for being faithful to God. They were made slaves. They were made to make the bricks for the pyramids, and the storehouses. And I mean, it was hard work. But God was with them, and God took care of them. All right, so 15, verse 15. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah, and the other Puah, poor unfortunate women with those names, almost like Gomer, the prostitute. Yeah. When you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but let male children live. So the king of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this, and let male children live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife even comes to them." So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very strong. And because the midwives feared God, God gave them families, not Pharaoh. He gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, "Every son that is born to Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live." So Pharaoh orders all the midwives just to kill the Hebrew males. That's easy, easy. And we lose track of Shiphrah and Puah, and we don't really pay attention because they don't show up again in Scripture. But my heavens, what faith to stand up against the king of the most powerful nation in the world. The king comes to them and says, "This is what to do," and they don't do it. And then they say, he says, "Why haven't they done that?" And he says, "Hey, they use their wits." Remember what Jesus says? You have to be as sly as the fox. That's what Jesus is talking about. Sometimes you have to use your brains to get it. I mean, you can't just sit in the middle of the road and say, "God will take care of me." God gave you a brain, and you believe that God will take care of you, but God gave you a brain. But you always do what is right for God. Okay? You don't do what people command if it goes against God. This is another great example of that. When we had COVID and all these idiot churches closed down for months and maybe some even for more than a year. Why? Does God say that? Did anywhere in the Scripture did God say, and if there's a virus, don't celebrate the Word and Sacrament. Stay home. No, God never said that. God said, "You do what you're supposed to do, and I'll take care of you." Okay. Did God say everybody sit in a small room and breathe on each other? No. Use your brain. Should we sit a fair distance apart? Yes. Should we wear masks, especially if we're vulnerable ourselves? Yes. Should we? I'm not opposed to vaccination. Some people are. That's fine. Whatever. But if you want to take a vaccination, do a vaccination. If you want to build your immune system, that makes sense. Take your echinacea and your vitamin C and whatever. Do the things that are intelligent that you can do, but you don't worry about it. Always do what God said to do first, and then worry about everything else. I was just floored when so many churches just rolled over. and let the governor tell them to close down.
Yeah.
Just floored. I couldn't believe so many of my churches. I mean, the other ones are sissies. They'll do anything. I mean, but Missouri Synod, I mean, they're stalwart. And a lot of Missouri Synod churches finally did, after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, say, no, this is dumb. I mean, I saw through it. I knew it was a ruse right from the beginning. Oh, well, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is going to change nothing with a virus. A virus takes a year or more to burn itself out. That's just the way it is. So 2 weeks is not going to help you. So if you're not willing to stay closed for a year or more, then there's no point in closing. So a lot of our Missouri Synod churches, after a couple of weeks or a month or two, finally said, yeah, this is dumb. And of course, there were some in other states that it was really regulated. I had a friend in California who had cops come to the church and count every Sunday to make sure they weren't violating the 10-person rule. He had, I think, 6 or 7 services a Sunday so that he could get all of his people in. Yeah, because he was only allowed 10 people at a time, and like I said, he had cops counting. Yeah, we had cops in the parking lot, but they never did anything. They responded to people in the congregation who called them because I was having services and breaking the law. So, yeah, according to Governor Pritzker, anyway. So the bottom line of Shiphrah and Puah is you don't ever follow human law over God. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the consequences are. Because people will say, well, yeah, but I might get prosecuted. Well, too bad. Then you get prosecuted. Don't worry about it. If anything else, if nothing else, you can be a witness. I mean, what better witness than somebody who goes to jail for upholding God's law?
So Shiphrah and Puah are the Old Testament correlation of the apostles in Acts.
Yeah, because that's exactly what Peter
I'm trying
says,
to
right?
find it. And
Right? Yeah. It's better to obey God
Right.
than man.
Right,
Yeah, exactly, because they tell him not to preach.
right.
Don't preach the gospel anymore. And he says, I'm sorry. He says, got to do it.
So right in the beginning of the Bible.
And they got beaten for it. Okay, don't forget that. They took consequences. They spent time in jail. They got beaten. Yeah, it's not that there's no consequences for doing
right,
right.
they
And-
got beat.
Mm-hmm. It's not there's no consequences.
Who
So-
hasn't gotten beat though for doing right? A lot of
One way or
everyone
another.
has. I mean, when I was a kid, I'm doing the right thing, but I get blamed for it, and I get whacked.
But you got to
Yes.
know what to do and how to do it. God gave us a brain we're to love the Lord God with all our mind, and the Jews are better than anybody with this. They know that commandment, and that's why they're so smart. No, it's really true. They understand the commandment of God to use your brain.
Yeah, God, you always have to remember that God gave you a brain. Jamie says, I always struggle with that as a teacher, following man's law. In a public school. That's what I said in my article back
that's a great word.
back in August. I said, I wrote that article about that I feel so bad for Christian public school teachers because they are under a horrendous burden, being told what they have to teach and being told they have to toe the party line. And the party line, I'm sorry, but come on, in Chicago, the teachers union controls the whole thing. Now they control the mayor too. So, and so we know what the party line is. That's not a mystery. And there is an agenda to push all of this, woke ideology, and they're smart because the way you control a society is by getting a hold of their schools. That's the way you control a society.
But the NEA's been doing that since the 70s.
Right.
In the curriculum had been
I
converted.
have
growing up.
I had a good friend. She's dead now, but she was president of the state NEA and an officer in the national NEA, and she was always pushing her leftist agenda. You know, and
Your friend is the leftist?
she was, yeah, she's dead now, but she was always pushing her leftist agenda, and I told her that all the time. I said, your job is to teach, not to mold children in the way you want them to be. So teach. You're a good teacher. She was an outstanding teacher. And then she got involved in all the politics side of it, and she kind of, you know, went off the rails. But okay, so that's where we're going to close this week. We still have the prayer of Jabez to do, so that should be only a few minutes. So that we should be able to get the Apocrypha in. So next week is the Apocrypha. So if you have an Apocrypha, find it and bring it. If not, I'm going to read it aloud anyway, so it's no big deal. Because I have one copy other than my copy of the Apocrypha. But Bell and the Dragon, which in college I had to translate out of Greek, which was the professor's way of making sure that we actually knew the Greek and weren't just memorizing the Bible. So he told us for one of the exams he gave us Bell and the Dragon to Bell what? He was very, very kind in the grading because there were a lot of words in there that you don't see anyplace else because it's Septuagint. But anyway, all right, let's close with the blessing. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen. All right, see everybody next week.
See you tomorrow.
You're welcome.
Yeah, tomorrow.